Hi, I'm Susan Whitmore. Having to go on in life after your child has died is the worst thing you will ever have to endure. You are about to meet some extraordinary people who have done just that. Together we share our stories of loss, pain, and hopelessness. And then how we rebuilt our lives to once again include new meaning, joy, and happiness.
I am much stronger than I ever thought I was.
I have a little angel sitting on my shoulder.
I can look at pictures and stuff now, and that really doesn't bother me.
I had to, pull myself together for the dog, if nothing else.
Not for me, for the dog.
As you journey with us, please consider this a gift from our hearts to yours.
St. Augustine was once asked about life after death and what it was like. He kind of put it in a very poetic way. He talked about the image of a group of people standing on a seashore, and they're looking out at the sea, and there's a ship, a three-masted sailing schooner. And they look at the ship, and they see the ship is moving away from them, and they feel that distance. But they notice the ship is just as beautiful and strong as it was when it was close to them, that it still carries the same cargo it did when it was close to them. And they stand there on the shore and they look out at the ship until it grows further and further away, and they feel more and more distance, until the ship is just a speck where the sea meets the sky. And then it's gone. And they say to themselves, he or she are gone. At that same moment, on the other shore, are a group of people standing on the shore looking out at the horizon, and they see a speck coming toward them, and they say, here he or she come. And Augustine said, and that is life, and that is death, and that is life.
Please bless a brand new angel.
Well, there's no question but that the death of a child is the most profound grief experience that anyone can ever go through.
A child dies, that's just not the norm of what we're expecting. It's very painful, tearing away, because most parents expect that they will be outlived by their children.
Watching a child die is probably the worst thing for the family, and that the grief that comes after is worse and more difficult than any other group.
As a parent, you're giving it all your love and investing so much energy into that relationship that when it disappears, it's shocking. It's like a hole that, as most of the parents I talk to, it's like one that can never be filled.
Unfortunately, for some, our lives are cut way too short. And that leaves the surviving family in a state of utter shock and a fear of an inability to carry on with their own lives.
It feels wrong that that child should die first.
The human brain is hardwired for a certain sequence of events in our lives, and to have a child predecease us, it's unnatural at some level. And so I think it jolts us and shocks us at a core level which is so deep and painful that it's very hard to deal with. Plus, there's very little understanding, I think, from society at large in facing death, and specifically in facing the death of children.
Every year, over 100,000 children die in the United States. and that's more than 400,000 throughout the world. And obviously leaving millions of parents, millions of family members to pick up the pieces and move on with their lives.
I'm Ann Roberts, and our son is Mitchell Roberts Neiman. He was 6 years old when he died. He had a very rare form of cancer called Burkitt's lymphoma that strikes 2 in a million.
He survived for 7 months, was really doing well for 5 months. Went into remission and then died in July from really complications from the radiation treatment that was preparing him for a bone marrow transplant.
My name is Jennifer Wolf.
And I'm Graham Wolf, and Zach would have been 4 this month. He was born with a rare liver and heart condition called Alagille syndrome, and he died in the ICU.
My name's Chip Durchie, and this is my wife, Beth. Our daughter, Megan, was 14 and a half when she was killed in a car accident.
My name is Gilda Martin Del Campo, and my son died 4 years ago. His name is Eric Farid Chain. He actually took his own life.
My name's Joanne Davis. My son is Donnell Davis. He was killed, gunshot wound to the head.
My name is Dick Reardon. My son, Billy, was killed in a scuba diving accident picking up shellfish to cook for dinner for his friends about 21 years ago.
4 days before his 22nd birthday, I received a call that he had been out scuba diving and he never returned.
And my daughter, Carol, died of a heart attack when she was 19, about 18 years ago.
I ran up the stairs and she was already sitting against the wall, and I looked at her and I just knew that she wasn't alive.
My daughter's name is Erica Whitmore Godwin. She was only 6 weeks away from her wedding. She'd been having terrible headaches for about 4 months. It turned out that it was a stage 4 tumor.
She fought hard and we fought hard, and we had an extra year with her, but it was very aggressive malignant cancer that killed her.
My name is Misty Rowe, and when I was 38, I got pregnant for the first time, and it was really a joy. And then my husband and I went for the ultrasound. Within 2 weeks, the heart had stopped.
My name is Corrine Gustafson. My daughter, Jessica Lee Haney, died August 25th, 2002 of herpes, and her baby, Drew Madison Haney, died August 19th of 2002 of herpes.
My name is Mark Klass. I'm the father of Polly Klass. Polly was a 12-year-old girl having a slumber party with 2 of her girlfriends when a stranger broke into her room and then proceeded to kidnap my daughter. We spent 65 days searching for her, only to find he had murdered her within about a 2-hour period.
We have the privilege of hearing the stories of several parents' journeys through their grief, and we find that their children's deaths are just the beginning of the parents' new lives.
At the very beginning, I don't remember being able to feel or understand. Even though logically I knew that she had died, there were times when I couldn't get the feeling. But as time went on and the pain came, it was there all the time.
At first, many times you'll panic and you'll be in such high grief that you don't think you can stand it for another second, that, you know, that you're going to die if you have one more second of grief.
I really used to feel so often, how can any human being feel this kind of pain and actually survive it? I didn't see how I could survive it.
It hurts physically, it hurts emotionally, it hurts mentally, and that hurt will be there.
The pain is very physical. The pain is like an elephant on your chest that you have to push aside sometimes just to get a breath, and that lasts for so long.
There was an emotional impact to that where the reality of Erica's death and how much it affected everyone. It just flooded in, you know.
One of the ways I describe it is the hole was bigger than the me. The hole that used to be my heart was so huge.
I couldn't believe this was happening, and I didn't consider myself even human at this point because I was so out of it. This just couldn't be happening.
It was exhausting, too. There were times when I thought, I don't even want to lift my arm up. I'm so tired, and I'm so tired of feeling so horrible.
I felt there was nothing left of me. I was completely depleted, and there was nobody home.
It's like having somebody hit a sledgehammer over your head as hard as they can. But I found the way to get around it was don't stop yourself from crying.
The first year of the grief process for me was very difficult. I would have uncontrollable sobbing, and it just, I didn't know when it was going to come. Cried myself to sleep most nights.
I would just like in the morning, I remember starting a day, I would just like go get in the shower and just kind of like lose it, you know. I did that kind of to start the day and to end the day.
In the beginning, I cried, and I cried, and I cried. You know, on the way to work, I'd see something that reminded me of him, and I'd cry. I have pulled off the freeway so many times because I couldn't see for crying.
I mean, my goodness, we just cried so much, my wife and I. It was so terrible, so horrible.
At the beginning, when Zach first died, you know, we had this house, we had his room, and I think everything felt very empty. We were feeling very alone, that we felt that we were the only people in the world who had lost a child, because this was just something so foreign to us. We didn't know anybody who had lost a child, and we just were wondering, saying, hey, what are we supposed to do now?
You're constantly asking questions on, you know, why is this happening to us and our family, and without any real answers. But there's a point where you've got to say, you know, it's happened, so now what?
It's kind of a paradox. On one level, everybody grieves in their own way. And on another level, everyone has similar grief experiences. For some it may be sooner, for others it may be later in the grief process. But virtually all parents who suffer the death of children reach the depths of despair such that they think about ending their lives.
I would be walking at the beach, and I would visualize walking into the ocean and never coming back. And it didn't scare me at all. I was absolutely comfortable that I could just walk into the ocean and die. And that would be absolutely okay.
I kept going out of the commitment that I had of seminars that were booked and prepaid for the whole year. And in my mind, I was going to straighten things out and leave everything in order so that I would go, so that I would follow.
At times, I thought this would be so much easier just to exit, you know, do whatever. You know, I didn't really think of the mode or whatever, but I thought I could rid myself of this pain pretty easily.
I wanted to die. I did not want to be alive. I could see no way that I would ever know another day of happiness or joy.
If they took their life and they died, which is a thing that's crossed every mother or father's mind at one point or another. I can't live like this without him or her. But then who are you going to be hurting? If you die, if you take your life, you have a sister, brother, mother, uncle that's going to hurt.
Knowing that there is a whole range of emotion that you typically can go to, I think is helpful, so that you give yourself the permission to feel whatever you feel from one moment to the next. And you know, grief is an incredibly gigantic roller coaster ride, emotional roller coaster ride. It's up and down, it's up and down, from a moment to a moment to a moment to a moment.
I would be here, and then I'd have a good day, and I'd have an awful day, and a bad day, and a little better, and up and down. And so it's a very nonlinear process. And that's one of the things I think is really important, is not to think you're just going to keep getting better.
You know, grief comes in waves, huge waves in which you feel overpowered, wailing and crying. And then it passes and you participate for a while. And then again, that wave comes again. So it's a cycle back and forth that you have to find your way through.
You may not be in tune with anybody else around you. And the most important thing I think that people can know is that they have to go on their own unfortunate, painful ride.
I felt a dullness inside of myself. I've always been a particularly joyful person, a creative person, an energetic person, and it was none of those things for a very long while.
I felt almost separated in some other planet or something.
Anger would surge, and resentment would surge, and tears would surge, and I felt like somebody was ripping my heart out.
She was on my mind all the time. I felt like I talked to her every second. Everywhere I went, every store I went into, she was with me.
The weirdest things happened. I lost my sense of taste. I couldn't taste food, and that lasted for over a year.
For months, I couldn't eat. They would say, laugh and say, yeah, your appetite will come back. And it did.
Just accept whatever comes up in ourselves. You know, total self-acceptance, total unconditional love for ourselves in the process we're going through. Whether we're confused, shocked, angry, feeling guilty, feeling lost, whatever it might be, feeling needy, feeling not needy, feeling isolated, feeling cold, feeling cut off, you know, all the things that come up. To just know that it's part of the process and to give yourself permission to go through that without self-judgment. Because it's bad enough to be experiencing it, to add on judgment of it, or I shouldn't be, or I should be feeling something different, is just to make it all the worse.
I believe that you're going through a process, that process is something that you work through. Hopefully, you don't stay at the same place. And it takes a certain commitment, I think, to do that.
Quite frankly, for some years, I needed medications to get me through those 3 months.
You know, you worry about what other people think of you, where you should really be worrying about yourself and how you're dealing with everything. And so I got to the point pretty early on that I really don't care what other people think, you know. And my thought was, I've got to get through this myself, and I'm going to set my path and do what I need to do on a daily basis.
You can enjoy things between cries. I mean, you don't have to be sad 100% of the time.
Do what you feel is best for you. You know, whatever works for you. You know, if going to the cemetery is not your cup of tea, then don't do that.
Yeah, you kind of function, you know, you have to. And sometimes, though, to be honest with you, the fact that you had a job or you had other things going on kind of took your mind away just for a brief moment. Then, of course, you know, you're back at where you were with, you know, this is reality. Our daughter's gone, you know. And especially the end of the day, for me, coming home without a complete family at dinner was very hard. Very hard.
I cried everywhere. So whenever I would have what I call Erica attacks, they're grief attacks, which happens at any time of the day or night, no matter where you are, it's really not something you have any control over. They really have a life of their own.
The worst time is the night when the lights go off and there's nothing else to occupy yourself, and you know sleep ain't coming.
And sometimes it takes tremendous faith just to get up in the morning, to wake up and to be able and willing to face the next day. But that's all you can do. All you can do is the best you can do in life. One moment at a time, one breath at a time, really.
I allowed myself to feel whatever I was feeling because I had people tell me this is wrong, you shouldn't be angry, you know better, you're spiritual, you're this, you're that. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I have 2 people gone.
And what was hard for me is a lot of people didn't consider it a child or a baby, but to a mother who has carried it and felt it and named it, it is a child.
And you really have to be able to communicate to people around you what you're going through, in the sense that, so that they know that I'll feel better. If you don't say anything, just give me a hug, that's all I need. If you can help people help you, and because they're going to want to.
We worked 7 days a week, 18-hour days for years to try to get something done, to try to keep our minds occupied so that we wouldn't have to delve into those dark places too much.
During this first period of time, you have to accept your grief. Let it go. It'll be uncontrollable for a while. But every week, every month, every year that goes by, it'll be a little more and more controllable. Not that you'll ever forget your children, not that you'll ever not cry, but that you'll be able to live with it more and more.
It always goes away, and it always comes back, but it comes back less and less.
We would avoid things. It's unbelievable how many television shows have stories about kids being murdered or dying, and there'd be things that would remind you, and you just break down crying, for no real good reason except that there is something there that just reminds you of something.
I tried to keep busy, and what I did was worked as hard as I could.
We created new and different rituals so that our life would have a different tenor.
And for a year or two, I'd be in meetings with important people, and I'd just start crying and got myself so I wasn't embarrassed. I'd cry, get over it, and then...
When you branch out and reach out, I know it's painful for a lot of people, but once you reach out and connect with other people who have gone through or are going through similar circumstances, then you realize that you're part of a wider community.
When you've lost a child and you have other children, of course, your heart goes out to them as well, and you're in a panic as to what you can do for them. And it's very different for kids of different ages. If you have teenage kids, they can really, bear that with you, and you need to be actively sharing with them and explaining to them what's going on. With younger kids, 3 years old or less, you've got to just focus on kind of the concrete routine, how the routine of the day is disrupted. And so they have at least an expectation of what is to occur. And to help them also to feel a sense of safety, that even though mommy and daddy are doing badly in terms of being upset, that things will still be okay, and to reassure them of that. And then also to spend times with them where you can still have fun and do things which are enjoyable. So there's at least some sense of normalcy.
It's so easy to forget that if we have other children, that they are grieving and that they are facing a loss just as meaningful as ours, albeit totally different.
No matter how young they are, they need that support and help and understanding, and also space to do whatever they need to do.
My daughters, I think they had difficulty in talking about it. I don't know why. When Bill died, Carol was very angry also. And then when Carol died, my daughters were just absolutely beside themselves. They said, it can't happen again, Mom, it can't happen again. And I had no answer for them.
And as mayor, I remember going to funerals for people who had lost a child in a murder or an accident or something like that, and telling them that they had to think of the children left behind.
Again, the waves of grief, explaining that there'll be times when there's a lot of upset and times when things will be normal and things will go back and forth. It's important to explain that to the kids.
With my son, I think maybe it was hardest with him. He's older, and him and his brother were, he told me once, not only brothers, but best friends also. So dealing with his grief was like a double me.
They feel, from what I know now, really alone, very isolated, and feeling incredibly unique, like no one else in the world has gone through what they've gone through. And for them to get either support through therapy, through church, through a synagogue, through other kids who have lost a sibling, for them to know they're not alone is really important.
A year and a half later, I became pregnant again, and I had a perfectly healthy child, a little girl. And my daughter was obsessed with knowing about this brother she would have had if he had lived. And we sometimes would tell stories, we almost make up little stories about what the two of them would do in heaven and how they were babies before they came down.
My boys protected us and didn't go, and they didn't talk about Megan and didn't let us know how they felt, because when we cried, it made them feel uncomfortable and scared. So we had a long time there where we didn't talk about it much.
And we still don't enough, and we need to start doing more of that. Our boys are 19 now, and Beth just recently talked, we're twins, and Beth just recently talked with our one son about the whole subject of Megan, and they had not a lengthy discussion, but a discussion about Meg and, you know, how much we miss her and that type of thing. So.
And he said to me, for a year I rode my bicycle to school with a stomach ache, and I never knew why I felt so bad. I know now why I hurt so much. And he also said that he went through years thinking, when someone would say something to him that he didn't like, don't you know what happened to me? Don't you know my sister died?
He got mad. You know, he was
but they never told us that. They really protected us.
It's easier for him to talk about his brother now. He used to didn't want any pictures of his brother in the house, and once I asked him why don't you have Don's pictures hanging in the house? And he said because it angered him when people would come to say, is that your brother, or what happened to your brother? That kind of thing. He didn't want to have to relive what happened to his brother, so he had no pictures of him in the house. He does now.
I think there is a difference between men and women, but I think it's also with personality types. Everybody is different and has their own way of dealing with things.
Men will tend to isolate. They go into their cave, feel their feelings alone, think about things, try to sort it out. They're likely to be out driving around the lawn on their lawnmower, you know, or fixing something in the garage, working on the car, taking a long walk, getting busy, doing something. Now they're still feeling their feelings and going through it, but they tend to be more loners.
I was really great in being there for Spencer, and that was all the energy I had, so it made it really hard for Ann, because between me trying to keep myself together and trying to be there for Spencer, I didn't have a lot left, if anything, to give to Ann. And so, you know, it becomes a very, very lonely process.
There is a separation between you and your spouse because you're both in grief. You can't be there for each other when you're both at the bottom.
For a man, he wants to be strong for his family and to be there for his wife, and tends not to directly experience his emotions or wants to make it more private.
You know, I would break down at the end of the day on my own in privacy, so to speak. But during the course of the day, I tried to, be as the strong father figure.
For a woman turns herself over to her emotions more completely and fully. And so it's more visible, it's more palpable in terms of a need there because of the shock, the wailing, the crying, where the husband wants to support her through that process. So it seems like he's coping well, but of course he's feeling that intense pain inside of him just as much as his wife.
Well, people grieve very different ways, and I'm a person who a lot of times keeps my emotions to myself. But when I lost my children, I let my emotions go. And my wife, Jeannie, I think handled it much better than I did. I think women in general are much more open to sensitivity and grieving. We can cry, we can scream, we can get angry, we can even curse. I mean, quietly or loudly, and I did all that. I did all that.
I was looking up at the ceiling in my bedroom, screaming at the top of my lungs, "You bring her back! You bring her back!"
Very typical for parents to not be able to understand the grief reaction of their partner because it's different from theirs. And it's so intense for them that they can't imagine anybody could not be experiencing it exactly the same way.
Part of the grieving process is also having all your difficulties in marriage suddenly being amplified in the shock and the turmoil and the intense feelings that you're having after the loss of your child. It's normal for all the resentments and difficulties you've had through the years to come to the surface because you're in so much pain, and you usually turn to your partner for support, and now your partner is having difficulties themselves being able to get by day to day.
I found it hard to emote grief in the way that other people seem to. I didn't do a lot of crying, and I think this bothered my wife, that she thought I wasn't grieving, but I was just not grieving the same way she was.
I even had times where I wondered if I wanted to be married to him anymore because I thought I was seeing a side of him that was so cold and so calloused and so unable to express and feel.
It put a strain on my marriage because my husband turned to another woman, and we went to marriage counseling, and we did simple things together. We went up to mountains and walked in the forest, and we kind of got away from it all, and we were very happy for a long time, and then we had a beautiful baby, but eventually we got divorced. I don't know. I think maybe we changed in different ways.
We had already started to grow apart even before Eric died, just because of my traveling and his traveling in a different direction. But I think that some of what happened after Eric died helped to just bring the wedge even further.
It was kind of understood between the two of us that, we couldn't survive alone in this whole grieving process. I mean,
we needed each other.
We needed to be together to deal with it because I firmly believe it had been too much of a burden for me to deal with that grieving on my own.
Realizing that you're both different, even though you're joined together by such intimate connections and by such dramatic events in your lives.
Graham was a rock to me, and we were very supportive of each other, and I think that was what got us through this.
Wayne and I had an amazing relationship and have a stronger relationship now than ever.
I know now that it's really important that we allow everyone, and especially our spouses, to grieve their own way.
You have an underlying commitment that you're going to see it through.
I think that commitment really helped us. And these years later, we have a great marriage, and I'm very grateful that we have each other since we lost our only child. And I think that we've really done a good job of of making that happen.
Well, as friends, we don't seem to know what to say or what to do or how to behave. We don't know how to deal with our own feelings or our own fears.
Friends, we had some great friends. We also had some friends that I would say were very disappointing and were very, very much a letdown to us. And as I think most people who lose a child, you tend to reevaluate the people who you want around you, and that definitely happened.
There are lots of people who can disappear from your life because they can't be with us, because we are their worst nightmare, because we've lost a child, and that's what every parent fears more than anything. And people will disappear, and we don't need them, because we need the people who love us and who are there for us and who take care of us. And there's a lot of people out there.
Several of our very close friends remain very close and were very supportive and protective of me and my family. Others not so. Others I really never saw again. Some that I did see again would have a hard time even acknowledging my situation, my daughter's death, and I had no time for those people. Even a couple of members of my own family pulled away from my wife and I.
And you realize that you want to have people near you who understand you, or who at least don't upset you. And I think you're going to lose people. And Jennifer lost a very good friend of hers. I lost a good friend of mine. And it was our decision, though.
Yeah, it's difficult to be around someone who's lost a child, especially in the first year, because they're really depressed and they're crying a lot and they need to talk about their child all the time. And not everybody can stomach that. But to have your friends and your family stick by you through thick and thin is so important, because that's when you need them the most.
For the most part, people were very generous with us. They realized that we were, or that I was doing it publicly, and I guess showing people what it's like to be a guy who's just had his kid taken.
And you realize by sharing this together, it's sort of a bond of healing, almost like you're in this circle together.
It was an amazing support group who were just there. And they were there in a way that my family couldn't be, because my family was going through their own issues and they just couldn't be there for me in terms of what I needed, and my friends could.
When I decided to specialize in oncology, I knew that I would be with people that were, for the most part, facing at least the possibility of terminal illness. And I think that a big reason why I chose the profession was to actually look into the face of death, realizing that that is an aspect that all of us go through in life. And it was eye-opening. I can honestly say that I don't fear death the way I used to. And I also can say that even though death can be painful and challenging and heartbreaking for all those who love the person who's going through what I see as a transition, as well as for the person who's going through that transition, it's also a very sacred, intimate time where we get to see people who they, in the way that they really are. It's been a roller coaster ride as far as how it's changed me and how it's affected me, the emotions that it brings up, the joy when you see people come to a place of acceptance, the pain when you see people losing someone that they're so connected with. And being part of that, being invited into that, is such an honor.
2 years after Megan died, there was a terrible car accident, and some friends of ours lost their son. And I went over to her house and we went for a walk, and she turned to me and she said, "What can I do to make this pain go away?" And I thought, you're just starting. And up until that point, I never thought that. What can I do to make this pain go away? It was like I just lived the pain. And I thought maybe I should think that too. What can I do to make this pain go away?
I was low and angry for some time. I can't tell you how long it took me to get out of that. It took a few years. My anger subsided, but my missing him just was terrible. I had a terrible time.
First Christmas was really tough. I found myself having a lot of jealousy, which I'd never had, and I thought, Gilda, that's terrible for you to feel that way. But I did.
The next year and the next Christmas, I was still feeling tremendous grief and crying at the drop of a hat. It's pretty tough to get through, but then again, you just let yourself go, and then between crying, do positive things that you either like or that need to be done.
We just try to be as normal as possible. I mean, it is painful, the first birthday, the first anniversary. They're excruciating. First Mother's Day.
I started feeling sorry for myself. And then you work through that too. So there's so many different things that you have to work through and finally realize that, well, life goes on and you have to make the best of what you can at the time. And I think this has helped me through.
People say, what happened to your career? And I said, I had a change in my life. And when I was blessed enough to have a healthy child, I stayed home with her for a very long time.
Everyone is at a loss when a death happens, any death. I've yet to meet anyone who feels competent to grieve and competent to help somebody who is grieving, and yet everybody wants to do that. So one of the biggest needs that I've found people, extended family and friends have, is literally to know what to do. What can I say? What can I do? And I always tell them the first thing you can do is just be there. It's just show up. As hard as it is, and sometimes that's the most difficult thing, is to be in the room with someone who is grieving and in such pain that your heart is breaking and you don't know how to help them.
When you want to help somebody who's lost a child, it's important to realize that you've got to try to see the world through their eyes. I think it's natural to be afraid to listen to what they have to say, because it's shocking to all of us to even imagine ourselves going through that experience of losing a child. So it's easy to push people away. But it's important to try to see the world through the person's eyes who's doing the grieving, and to really hear them out, to listen to what they have to say, to really let it register in your heart.
I think it's very hard for those around to help the person grieving for a child. I think to listen, to be caring, and to maybe affirm sometimes the pain.
And also then to participate with them in activities and encourage them to do activities if they want to, but really trying to accept their pace, because they have their own pace of grief. Their own waves of grief come over them at different times in unpredictable ways. When they see a picture of their child or something triggers a memory, then that grief comes in. Try to pace yourself with just the pattern that's taking place.
And then the words that need to be said are simply the honest truth about the situation, which is, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss, and I can't imagine how you're feeling. To me, the best thing you can say to someone who's grieving is, I can't imagine the pain that you are under. And the worst thing you can say is, I know exactly how you feel.
I think the best thing that someone said to me once was one of the surgeons at the hospital where I used to work. I switched jobs after he died. Anyway, one of the surgeons, he came up to me and he gave me a big hug and he said, Joanne, I can't even imagine how you feel, and I don't ever want to imagine how you feel. Now, that was because people always say, oh, I know how you feel. But he said, I can't imagine how you feel. And of course, I boo-hooed in his arms too. But that was it.
Platitudes like, well, you had so many years with your child. Sometimes that doesn't help. Trying to make it better, trying to make nice about it, doesn't really help.
One of the other things that's really not helpful is to tell somebody you're going to do something for them and then not do it. It could be as simple as, I'm going to pick up your kids, or I'm going to call you, or I'm going to come over, or I'm going to bring you dinner, and then you don't do it. And people are so fragile in that grief state and so dependent on the outer world for support that when you don't do it, the level of trust is just destroyed. And that sense of like, isn't there anything out there that, you know, I can count on?
There are always the comments, still to this day, like, you still think about him, or you have 2 beautiful daughters, as if to say, you know, move on, it doesn't matter. And I don't think anybody can understand, unless they've lost a child, the way we feel. Especially when those comments come out, it's like somebody's just punching you in the stomach.
When I would be crying and somebody would be with me and they would say, I know, that would really upset me, because they don't know. How can they know? They can't possibly know. They haven't lost a child. But it's their way of trying to do something or say something that's comforting. And so over time, I realized that they don't mean anything negative by it.
I think to say to somebody, it's okay, you'll get over it, it's not okay. And they may come to terms with it and be able to heal and move on, because another part of our spirit as a human race is the ability to heal and move on. Again, we wouldn't have survived if we couldn't do that.
I think it's so powerful that those of us who are going through a situation like this with parents remember to allow the parents to speak about their child.
To let your friends and your family know that you want to talk about that child, that you don't want that child to be forgotten. People are under this misconception that if they talk to you, you know, that it's such a taboo subject. It can't be taboo. But I think we have to tell them that. And I think that is the most important thing, because people would rather avoid it like the plague. They don't want to upset you. They don't want to make themselves feel uncomfortable. And I say boo to that. Let them be uncomfortable. You want to talk about him or her, and you tell them, I need to talk about them, so let me.
That, in a sense, is how the loved ones keep that child alive in their hearts and minds. And we really want to encourage that and listen to those stories and those different characteristics of that person as if it was the first time. And I think that's a great way of working through the grieving process with the parents, with the loved ones of the child who's passed on.
At first, I felt like people were really kind of like walking on eggshells around me, because they were afraid to say, oh, Donnell, such and such a thing, or oh, did I say his name? You know, that kind of thing. So I kind of felt like maybe I shouldn't have been there, because these people were uncomfortable with me being there because they were afraid to say Donnell. Okay, and that's his name. And I used to tell everybody all the time, talk about him. You know, it makes me feel good to, you know, talk about him, you know, say his name. You know, it's not going to hurt me for you to say his name. It makes me feel good that you still remember his name, you know, so talk about him.
People want to say something to help. They want to do something to help, and they're doing the best they can. So what used to upset me in the beginning doesn't upset me anymore.
I just appreciated when people came up and like gave me a hug, you know, and just didn't even need to say anything, just held you, you know, because, and I'm not a real huggy guy. I wasn't in the past, but I've become somewhat, because when someone just hugs you, you know how they feel. It's nice, because it's an understood type of feeling, you know. So.
What does life mean? You know, what lessons can we learn from the traumatic experiences of our lives? And You know, everything in our lives, the good and the bad, is an opportunity for growth and for growing our souls.
I mean, you can't experience this and not be changed. I mean, I don't think it's possible.
So I find that I am much more compassionate, much more forgiving, and much more, I value things.
It made me a much more sensitive physician. And I sort of, when a patient was in trouble or very sick or dying, I could appreciate what that patient was going through. So it made me a better person.
I wasn't afraid to die anymore.
That's
it just
for sure.
comes like instantaneously. I'm not afraid to die. If she can die, I can die too.
I feel that I am a more compassionate, understanding person, a person who perhaps feels more of the real connection that exists between people.
One of the things that it really does for you when you lose a child, and losing Mitchell for me, has really focused me much more so than I ever was on what's really important. Love and friendship and family. That's what's really important.
My life turned, and I began to see it in another way, and I got more involved with helping other people, with seeing things in a different light. My family, I'd always loved my family and they were there, but I began to appreciate them in a way I hadn't before.
If it did anything for me, was to help me to accept my emotions and grief and everything better than I ever thought I could have.
And what I realize now is to do that every day, not just because there's 3 special months in your life where your daughter's going to have a baby and you're getting ready to get married, and you know, I just wanted to grab all the gusto with her I could before she became a mommy. I want to do that every day with everyone I love.
And although I will never again say I have everything in the world, which is what I used to say, I've got everything in the world. I've got a great husband, I've got 2 wonderful children, I've got everything in the world I want. I'll never say that again, but I have a happy life.
I have a joy now. I have a very deep feeling of joy that they're at a happier place than I will ever imagine on this earth.
So I have felt like my self-confidence has increased, and even the moments of peace, when I am not into the pain or the grief, I have more inner peace than I ever did before, because I have confidence that everything is in its perfect order.
It changed me totally. I mean, I was always a sensitive person, but I'm a sensitive person in such a different way. I have so much more empathy for people. I'm so much more open-minded. You know, let anybody do it the way they want to do it. And I don't mean that about grieving, I mean that about everything. And I'm not so judgmental. I'd like to think that I'm beginning to be not as picky, but I think Graham would disagree.
I had visions. I mean, seriously, understanding things that I'd never understood before, having clarity that I have never had before, being able to move forward with very specific and clear agendas and truly get things done and accomplish things unlike anything I'd ever done before, and without fear and with strength and with confidence. Just kind of extraordinary. But I'd trade it all back for being the crappy little materialistic happy pig I was before in a heartbeat.
I just want her to be proud of what I'm doing and how I'm handling certain things, and you know, this type of thing coming out here and trying to help somebody else. You know, you can take the negative aspect, you know, self-destruct type thing, or you could be on the positive side. And I would think Megan would want us to be helping somebody.
I had a mission. I did. I had a mission in life. And it was, I think, a noble mission. It was really something that I could get my hands around, something that I knew I had to do, whether I had success at it or whether it meant that I would live in a cardboard box by the side of the railroad track. And I even told Violet that it might come to that, and she said, let's go, we'll do this together. And we were able to move forward with purpose and with meaning and with the ability to hopefully make some kind of a difference at some level for somebody. You know, I mean, that's kind of the goal.
And I'd also started a new career, and that really made a huge difference for me because it really gave me a new meaning and purpose in life, helping other people who would know the pain of losing a child.
And because of the girls' deaths, we've started the Jada Foundation, the Jessica and Drew Haney Awareness Foundation. And it will be an education about herpes. Most people have never heard of somebody dying of herpes. We are not interested in spreading fear or having people panic. We want people to be informed and make informed decisions.
I have come to work with children, from reading stories at the kindergarten or volunteering time to writing stories.
Finding a reason to live is what's made a difference. So now one of the causes that I have is to help people, especially the Latin people. I do it in Mexico and I do it in Las Vegas in Spanish. There is so much stigma in the Latin community about death, first of all, and second of all, about suicide.
I have made a decision not to compare my new joy to my old joy and my new meaning in life to my old meaning in life, because if I do that, the new life will always fall short of the old life. But the fact is that joy in life is joy. Will it ever be the joy that it was when Erica was here? No. How can it be? It's a different life. She's not there. But is it joy? Yes. It's just a different joy, and it's a different life, and it's a new life. And that's what I call rebuilding your life with new meaning and purpose.
The people that we love are with us always. And our relationships with them is not about their body. Even when they're living, it's not about their body. When people we love, leave the room or live thousands of miles away, just because we don't see them, they don't cease to exist for us. We still feel the intimacy and the power and the preciousness of our relationship with them when we don't see them and we don't touch them and we don't hear them. And it's true when people we love die as well.
His spirit still lives. I don't have him in a physical body. I won't have the things that I would enjoy if he were alive. Perhaps he would have gotten married. Perhaps I have grandchildren. I don't have that, but I know that I have him in spirit.
I talk to their pictures a lot. I have their pictures up there, and I'm not really talking, but I'll look up and I say, what do you think about that, Bill? Or Carol, what do you think? And I feel like they're giving me an answer.
Sometimes I sit there and I just have a good talk with him. And I really talk to him, like he can hear me. I really sit there and I talk to him.
And I know that who she really is not dead. And I know that someday I will be with her again.
A lady, very old friend, came up to me and said, now you have an angel sitting on your shoulder. And I cannot tell you how that has helped me, because I really do feel that Zach is always there with me.
I have a little angel sitting on my shoulder. And when I have doubt and when I don't have clarity, I talk to Polly, and I talk to her to this day, and she shows me the way.
Sometimes people are grieving that somebody didn't make a certain event. I said, well, they're watching. Makes you think they're not at this event? What makes you think they're not at this wedding? They've probably got a better view than if they'd been there feeling real sick in a wheelchair. How about it? They're there.
They're in a great spot now. They're looking down, they're loving you, they're laughing at you, and they're supporting you.
We feel that when a good thing happens to us, we say that Zach is up there looking down on us and taking care of us.
And we do that a lot. Whenever anything good happens, we always say, Zach, he's working hard for us.
When I was a child, I used to love to read mystery novels, and I found that I liked the novels about Sherlock Holmes the most. And I finally realized why. I think it was for a spiritual reason, because the other mystery books, the detectives who were the main characters were just seeking so quickly to find an answer to the mystery and solve it and close the case. What Sherlock Holmes lived for was the mystery itself.
Sometimes you have to live into your grief to discover your own meaning and the meaning that you can find in your grief. But I think that the resiliency of the human spirit is such that what makes human beings so remarkable is that we fashion our own meanings out of the traumas of our lives. And that the greatest challenge that grieving parents have is to find their own inner meaning for themselves that will help them to go on and take the next step day after day. And to have some faith that they will find some measure of comfort, that they will find their own ultimate way of coping with this trauma, and that who they are will become in many ways a gift to other people.
I've gotten on with my life, and I just know that there's hope out there for people who have gone through this, and that not to give it up.
Find the strength through love, through spirituality, whatever form that takes for you, and hang in there because you will make it.
Listen to your heart and do whatever it takes to give this a voice.
It makes you stronger to go through these things and realize that, you know, I can do it.
Anyone can find that strength to survive.
Things will get better, that this is a process, and that it's redeemable.
It's not that you get over it, you never get over it, but you go on because that's what life is supposed to be.
If we open our eyes and our hearts and our minds to what's around us, that the mystery itself can be what gives us the answer.
Okay, listen, we were talking about desperation, and it doesn't go on forever. I mean, that's the thing. At a certain point, you realize that you can enjoy the beautiful things that life has to offer, and life has beautiful things to offer. Life has music. Life has flowers. Life has art. Life has theater. And when you realize that those things are there and that you can enjoy them again, then you can realize that the desperation is fading. In my mind, that's the thing that you can impart to other people, and that's the hope that you can give them for a future without desperation.
All of the parents and many thousands of others who are not included in these stories have journeyed the path before you, and with hope and love have managed to turn their lives around.
No matter where you are in your process of grief, we hope that something that you heard, felt, or realized during this tape will stay with you for the rest of your life as you rebuild your life without your child. But know this, you are not alone, because we are all in this together.
Would you know my name if I saw you in heaven? Wouldn't be the same if I saw you in heaven. I must be strong and carry on, 'cause I know I don't belong here in heaven. saw you here, would you help me stand? If I saw you in heaven, I must be strong and carry on, 'cause I know I don't belong here in heaven. Lord, I know I don't belong here in heaven. Thank you.
You arose among my thorns. You were the calm in the eye of every storm. Now you're gone, and I've no more tears to cry. We never had a chance to say goodbye. Oh, bless a brand new angel. Heaven isn't all that far, though time came to take you. You're still living in my heart, with a love that's never changing. Please bless a brand new angel. You were my refuge from the rain, and when you'd smile, you'd bring summer back again. I hold you here forever in my mind, till we meet someday on the other side of time. Oh, bless a brand new angel. Heaven isn't all that far, though time came to take you. You're still living in my heart, with a love that's never changing. Please bless a brand new angel. Please bless a brand new angel.
Tonight I lay my body down to fly. If you could only see what I see up here in the sky. But don't you worry, don't you cry, I haven't left, I'm by your side. I'm just a heartbeat away, I'm with you every day. eyes can't see. Just call and I'll be there. You'll find me everywhere. Just reach out for me. I'm never far from where you are, 'cause I am just a heartbeat away. I know from where you are, it's hard to understand. The empty shell you see is not who I am. And don't you worry, don't you cry, I haven't left, I'm by your side. I'm just a heartbeat away. I'm with you every day, though your eyes can't see. Just a heartbeat. Just call and I'll be there. You'll find me everywhere. Just reach out for me. Just a heartbeat. I'm never far from where you are, 'cause I am just a heartbeat away. You'll find me in the stars that shimmer in the dark. Hear me in the breeze that blows through aspen leaves. You'll see me in the smile of a newborn child. We can share this place just a heartbeat away. There's so much more going on than you can see. We are so much more than we seem to be. So don't you worry, don't you cry, I haven't left, I'm by your side. I'm just a heartbeat away. I'm with you every day, though your eyes can't see. Just a heartbeat. Just call and I'll be there. You'll find me everywhere. Just reach out for me. Just a heartbeat. I'm never far from where you are, 'cause I am just a heartbeat away. 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 Just a heartbeat. Just going on. Just a heartbeat. Just a heartbeat. Just a heartbeat.